Exciting news this weekend as the Sound of Freedom film exposing human trafficking is projected to make $40 million in its opening week. We're also going to be looking at who Ted Cruz thinks brought the cocaine into the White House and further evidence on the attacks against Trump being politically motivated. All this and so much more coming up on the Gateway Pundits Weekend Review. Well, folks, it was an exciting week for Republicans and conservatives across the country as a film that finally stood for our values, The Sound of Freedom, smashed the box office, bringing in over $40 million in its opening week. These stories are from thegatewaypundit.com. Jim Caviezel's latest film, Sound of Freedom, opened at select theaters on the 4th of July across the United States. It goes on to say that on Sunday night, Angel Studios reported that Sound of Freedom has now hauled in $40 million in sales. Perhaps Hollywood should learn a thing or two about the decline of sales when they push all their woke crap in our faces and learn that maybe, just maybe, we actually care where we spend our money. And we'll actually spend it on movies that match our values. Also, most importantly, another story that was coming in today, Governor Ron DeSantis joined Maria Bartiromo. Maria did not hesitate to ask hard questions. She's quoted saying, "I'm wondering what's going on with your campaign. There was a lot of optimism about you running for president earlier this year, but here this weekend's headline from the Politico Playbook, failure to launch. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' campaign to topple Donald Trump has stalled. We are way behind," says top DeSantis PAC official. Now, DeSantis, of course, snapped back saying, "Maria, these are narratives. The media does not want me to be the nominee. I think that's very, very clear. Why? Because they know I'll beat Biden. But even more importantly, they know that I will actually deliver on all these things," DeSantis said. Now, of course, the DeSantis campaign, while he is a great governor and you may support him, has been called into question and the lack of interest, especially among young voters. With the way that he handled COVID and the state of Florida being a number one destination for many people across the country, it's strange that his campaign is performing the way it does. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments as to why you think people are really not as interested as they originally thought they were going to be back in 2022 when he decided to run. In weirder news, things heated up in the tech world. Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk got into a fight online. Elon Musk calling Mark Zuckerberg a cuck. Elon Musk goes there as feud with Mark Zuckerberg heats up. Last week, Facebook Meta launched their new app, a Twitter knockoff called Threads. Owner Mark Zuckerberg says its vision is to create an open and friendly public space for conversation for 1 billion plus people. Within hours of its launch, Twitter threatened to sue Zuckerberg and Meta, as Twitter on Thursday issued a cease and desist letter to Meta over the new social media app Threads. And if you scroll down on this, it's actually quite funny. Elon Musk and Zuck were going at it as Zuck responded to Wendy's on the new Twitter clone, and Elon Musk accused him of protecting brand speech, not free speech, and then used the phrase Zuck is a cuck. If you're not familiar with what a cuck is, I don't suggest that you Google it, but this brings up the question as to what the future of free speech is online, and if Twitter really is the bastion for all conservatives who have been unfairly censored. We know that the war is heating up and they're supposed to have a fight match possibly taking place in the Coliseum. In other interesting news, looks like Ted Cruz is weighing in on who might have left cocaine in the White House. Ted Cruz explains why he believes the cocaine in the White House does not belong to Hunter Biden and gives his theory on who is the most likely culprit. Shocking, as I would have thought that this would have been the culprit 100%. However, it goes down to saying here's his statement. "I think it is in all likelihood someone who works in the Biden administration, some senior Biden official, which makes the cover-up all more astonishing. You're telling me with the cameras that they have there, with the Secret Service they have there, with the Marine detail they have there, that nobody can figure out, hey, who left the bag of cocaine by the front door of the West Wing of the White House? I mean, that is, or the side door, that's insane. And the only reason they would put out a statement saying we will never know who it was is the same reason why the DOJ and FBI is engaged in a cover-up of Hunter Biden's acts of criminality, of Joe Biden's acts of criminality, of the evidence of corruption, sadly, this administration is more than willing to politicize. So Ted Cruz doesn't think that the cocaine belongs to Hunter Biden. I mean, I personally believe it probably did, but I'm not surprised that a lot of people in the Biden administration are coked up. I'm sure a lot of you guys might have had wild days before, specifically back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, or maybe just a few times during college. I mean, people do use illicit drugs, but using those drugs at the White House? I mean, you'd have to be pretty close to someone to be able to actually get that through security. And I would know, I'm someone who I've been in the White House, I've been in the Capitol building, I've gone through the security. Some other amazing stories that took place this week. Just a reminder, Chicago is currently still an absolute crap hole. Armed crews across Chicago robbed dozens overnight. You can get the rest of the story at gatewaypundit.com. But I just wanted to point out that robberies are up 14% across the city. You can ask your question on who's running these cities and who's committing the crime, but that's a little bit too honest. Our last story is so important as we head into the election. It appears as though the fight against Donald Trump continues when it was revealed that a corrupt DOJ prosecutor was caught trying to bribe a lawyer, redacted every reference to Trump cooperating with subpoenas. The story is absolutely shocking, and new court documents show that DOJ prosecutor Jay Barrett, an Obamite Russiagate DNC donor, redacted every reference to Trump cooperating with subpoenas. Recall Jay Barrett tried to bribe Walt Knott's lawyer, Stanley Woodward, in order to get his client to testify against Trump. It also shows that in the rest of these down here, it says the newly unredacted search warrant affidavit reveals that Jay Barrett used dirty tricks to make Trump look uncooperative. So this is further evidence in my perspective that this raid on Mar-a-Lago was absolutely 100% a hit job. There's no question about that, because they were trying to frame and make Trump look like he was more guilty than he was. And this is the political nastiness of it all. This is really how disgusting it is. But we have so many more stories. You can get these full stories, links in the description at thegatewaypundit.com.